Hello everyone and welcome back to Gods and Myths of Northern Europe. And we're still on the World of the Northern Gods chapter, but we're going to be reading about the goddesses and whatnot today. So without further ado, let me read you some. It's going to be a short chapter, I'm pretty sure, but still. Knowledge is good. Okay. The goddesses. There are also certain mighty goddesses. Frigg was the wife of Odin, and like him knew the future of the gods and men. Freya was Frey's twin sister, and the most renowned of all the goddesses. She helped in the affairs of love and had some power over the dead. She drove in a chariot drawn by cats. Freya was said to have had a husband called Od, who left her to weep tears of red gold at his disappearance. Skadi, the wife of Njord, came from the mountains to marry the sea god. The marriage was not a success because neither was willing to live away from their home. In the end, Skadi went back to the hills, where she went on skis and hunted with a bow. Bragi's wife was Idun, who had one important part to play. She guarded the apples of immortality, on which the gods feasted in order to keep their perpetual youth. Other goddesses are little more than names. Thor's wife, Sif, had wonderful golden hair. Baldr's wife was Nanna, and Loki's Sigyn, while Jinau and Fula are mentioned as servants to Frigg. There's also Giffion, to whom unmarried girls went after death. There's also Helene, who is the protector goddess. The wooing of Gerd. Besides these, we have the maiden Gerd, who was wooed by Frey. She lived in the north, and he caught the sight of her one day as he sat on Odin's seat. The radiance from her white arms lit up the sky and the sea, and as he watched, Frey was overcome by so intense a desire for her that he could neither eat nor sleep. At last he sent his servant Skirnir down to woo her, giving him his own sword and a horse for the journey. Gerd is at length persuaded to yield to Frey's wooing and to consent to meet him in the 9 nights' time. It was on this account, we are told, that Frey was without a sword when the last great battle of the gods came to be fought. The building of the Wall of Asgard. When the gods built Asgard, one of the giants, who was a great craftsman, offered to encircle it with a splendid wall to keep out their enemies. If the wall was finished within the space of one winter, it was agreed that he could have the fair goddess Freya as his reward, and the sun and moon as well. They thought that he could never complete the task and would pay his life as a forfeit. But he was helped by a marvelous horse, Svaldfari, who moved the stones for him and worked by night, doing twice as much as his master. 3 days before the coming of spring, the stronghold was nearly completed, and the gods were terrified at the thought of what they had promised. It was Loki who found a way out for them. He took on the form of a mare and whinnied at the horse, the great stallion, and lured him away. The unfortunate giant never finished his work, and when Thor returned from his travels, he did not hesitate to slay him with his hammer. The meeting of the mare and the horse had one other important result. An 8-legged colt was born and became Sleipnir, the finest of all steeds on which Odin himself rode. The Binding of the Wolf. Other creatures said to be begotten by Loki on the giantess Ingerboda were of the less benefit to the gods. The most terrible was the wolf Fenrir, who was brought up in Asgard, but grew so huge and fierce that in the end only Tyr dared to feed him. He was so menacing that they knew he must be bound, but every fetter which they had laid upon him was easily snapped. Finally, guided by the wisdom of Odin, the dwarfs forged a chain for him, made from the secret of impalpable things of the world, the roots of a mountain, and the noise of a moving cat, and the breath of a fish. It seemed no more than a silken cord, yet no force could break it. The wolf thought it was harmless, but he would not allow it to be laid upon him without him unless one of the gods placed a hand between his jaws as a hostage. Tyr alone was prepared to do this, so the wolf was bound, the chain held, and the gods laughed, all but Tyr, who lost his hand. Yeah, the Binding of Freya was always a strange story for me. Like, I personally feel bad for Freya. Like, he couldn't help that he grew so big. And, like, to be honest, I'd be pretty pissed off too if, like, I was in prison for something that I couldn't control. You know? It's like, he's growing. He can't help it. You know? Another of the monsters to whom Loki gave birth was the mighty serpent called Jormungandr, the world serpent. Odin flung it into the deep sea that encircled Midgard, and there it lies around the world, biting its own tail. As for Hel, Loki's daughter, Odin sent her down into the realm of mist and darkness, Niflheim. There she rules a kingdom encircled by a high wall and secured by strong gates, and into it pass men who die of disease or old age, called Helheim. So yeah, that was a short chapter. It really was interesting. I plan on reading more, but I prefer to like break it down bit by bit, so like to not confuse people. So I hope that's okay. Hope no one gets pissed off at that. Yeah. So I'll see you in the next video, whenever that may be. It's been hectic, and I hope to see you next time.